I never thought studying literature could make my pulse race like this. Not because of the poems, or the essays spread between us on her dining table, but because of her. Her name was Elena, and she wasn't supposed to make me feel like this. She was just my tutor. My father's old friend. Someone who'd agreed to help me pass the class I'd nearly failed. But every evening in that quiet house, something unspoken moved between us, a silence too aware of itself. The clock ticked softly against the wall. The scent of black coffee lingered in the air. She sat across from me, reading my essay with a red pen, her glasses slipping down the bridge of her nose. Her voice was low, thoughtful. You write like someone who wants to say more but doesn't. I laughed under my breath. Maybe I just don't know how to. She looked up at me then, really looked, and the moment stretched. Then you'll learn, she said quietly. That's what we're here for. But there was something in the way she said it, that made my chest tighten. She was beautiful in a way time didn't touch. Not perfect, not polished. A strand of hair always fell out of place when she leaned forward. She'd smile at her own mistakes, sigh when she lost her train of thought. And sometimes, when I said something that caught her off guard, she'd fall silent for a beat too long, as if trying to remember what it felt like to be surprised by someone again. Tonight felt different, though. The rain outside had started early, and the light flickered with the wind. Her house smelled faintly of lavender and something warm baking in the oven. We were reading The Great Gatsby, and I'd just said something stupid about love being a distraction. She smiled faintly, the kind of smile that carried years behind it. You say that like you've lived long enough to know, she murmured. Maybe I have, I replied, trying to sound older than I was. Her eyes lifted to mine, a flicker of amusement and something softer hiding there. Then tell me, she said. What do you think love is? I hesitated. My throat felt dry. I think, it's when someone sees you. Really sees you. Even when you're trying to hide. Her pen stopped moving. For a moment, she didn't breathe. Then she looked away, pushing her glasses up again, but her hand trembled slightly. That's a good answer, she said softly. The room felt smaller after that. The rain sounded louder. And when the lamp flickered again, she leaned over and switched it off completely. The sudden dimness made everything feel closer, the scent of her perfume, the sound of her breathing. Her voice came through the dark, low and unsteady. Now, she said, pay attention to me. For a heartbeat, I thought I'd misheard. But she wasn't looking at my paper anymore. Her eyes were on me, searching, uncertain, almost daring me to move. Something shifted in the air, fragile but magnetic. My hand brushed against hers by accident, and neither of us pulled away. The world outside blurred into rain and thunder, but all I could hear was the faint tremor in her breath. I didn't know if this was wrong or right, only that it was real. That she was real. And I wasn't about to look away. Then, just as she opened her mouth to say something more, the doorbell rang. Her body froze. The warmth between us vanished in a heartbeat, replaced by a silence thick enough to choke on. She looked toward the door, then back at me, her expression caught between guilt and something else entirely. And before she stood, she whispered, barely audible, "Don't move." The sound of footsteps faded down the hallway before she returned. When Elena came back into the room, her face was calm again, or maybe she wanted it to be. Her lips were pressed together, eyes avoiding mine. The lamp was back on. It was just a delivery, she said quietly, sitting down. But her voice didn't sound like it had before. Something about it had changed, like she was reminding herself where the line was. I tried to act normal, flipping a page in the book, but the words swam uselessly on the paper. The air between us was still heavy with what hadn't been said. After a long silence, I asked, "Do you ever miss teaching full-time?" Her gaze lifted, softening just a little. "Sometimes. The classroom has rules. Distance. You can hide behind that." She paused, the faintest sigh leaving her. "Private tutoring, it's different. More personal." "I like that about it," I said, too quickly. Her mouth twitched into a faint, knowing smile. "I know." We both laughed quietly, a nervous, shared mistake. Then she glanced toward the window. Rain streaked down the glass in thin silver lines. "When my husband was still here," she said suddenly, "he used to leave that window open. He liked the smell of rain." I froze, unsure if she meant to tell me that. "You're married?" I asked before I could stop myself. "Separated," she corrected, after a moment too long. "It's been 2 years. He lives in Chicago now. We tried to make peace with it." She stared down at the pen in her hand, turning it between her fingers. "Some things just stop fitting the way they used to." Her words hung in the air, quiet, sad, but free of bitterness. I wanted to say something comforting, but everything I thought of sounded wrong. So I just said, softly, "He must have been stupid to let you go." Her eyes flicked up to mine, startled, maybe even a little wounded. Then she looked away. "Don't say that," she murmured. "You don't know him. Or me." I nodded, but inside, something shifted. I realized she wasn't just beautiful, she was lonely in ways I understood. Not dramatic loneliness, but the quiet kind that lives in the pauses of a sentence, in the way someone hesitates before saying goodnight. When I was younger, my mother used to say that people carry storms inside them. I never believed her until now, sitting across from Elena, realizing hers had been going on for years. We kept studying after that, but neither of us really focused. Every time she leaned over my shoulder, my heart climbed into my throat. When I handed her my notebook, her fingers brushed mine, just slightly, and it felt deliberate this time. She didn't pull away. Neither did I. Her voice broke the silence, barely above a whisper. "You should go soon. It's getting late." "I know." But I didn't move. Neither did she. The rain outside softened to a quiet drizzle. Her hand was still on mine, light and trembling. And for the first time, she didn't look away. For the next few days, I couldn't stop thinking about that moment, her hand on mine, her eyes steady and unsure all at once. When I went back to her house that Friday, I told myself it would just be another session. Notes. Grammar. Distance. But the lie felt thin even before she opened the door. Elena greeted me with a tired smile. "You're early." "Couldn't sleep," I said. Her gaze lingered a second longer than it should have. "Coffee?" I nodded, following her into the kitchen. The faint sound of jazz drifted from another room. Her hair was tied loosely, a few strands falling down the side of her face. Everything about her seemed unguarded, too human for the safe distance we were supposed to keep. We sat at the table again, pretending to read. The clock ticked between us like a warning. Then came the knock. She stiffened immediately. "Don't move," she whispered again, the same words she'd said that first night. When she opened the door, I heard a man's voice. Deep, familiar. My stomach dropped. "Didn't know you were back in town," she said. "I got in this morning," the man replied. "Thought I'd pick up the rest of my things." Her husband. I could see him from the hallway, tall, wearing an expression that didn't quite hide his curiosity when he noticed me. "And who's this?" he asked. "Student," she said too quickly. "I'm helping him with literature." He nodded, eyes sharp. Looks old for a student. I forced a polite smile, muttering something about college finals. He didn't buy it, not really. But he also didn't care enough to question further. He just stared at her for a moment longer than necessary before walking past us into the living room. Elena's hand was trembling as she poured another cup of coffee she didn't drink. When he finally left, silence crashed back into the house. She turned to me, her face pale. This was a mistake. You shouldn't come anymore. The words hit harder than I expected. Because he saw me. Because I saw myself, she said quietly. And I didn't like what I saw. I stood there, heart pounding. You didn't do anything wrong. She laughed softly, without humor. You think that matters? The next moment felt suspended, rain beginning again outside, her eyes shining not with tears but with something heavier. I took a step forward. Elena, don't, she whispered, backing away. You're too young to carry someone else's mistakes. But I couldn't stop. I reached for her hand, just once, a desperate reflex, and she let me hold it. For a few seconds, we said nothing. Her breath hitched, her eyes closing as if to stop herself from feeling too much. When she finally pulled free, her voice was barely audible. Please go. I left without another word, the rain soaking through my shirt before I reached the car. Through the window, I saw her watching me, hand against the glass, unmoving. And in that single glance, I knew neither of us would be able to walk away for long that I tried staying away. For a week, I didn't text her, didn't show up for tutoring. But silence doesn't always fade, sometimes it grows teeth. Every night, I replayed her words, you're too young to carry someone else's mistakes. And yet, every part of me wanted to prove her wrong. On the 8th day, I found myself parked outside her house again. The porch light was off, but her living room window glowed faintly, that soft amber light I'd memorized. I almost left. Almost. Then the curtain shifted, and she appeared. She saw me before I could turn away. The door opened a moment later. You shouldn't be here, she said. But her voice didn't sound angry, it sounded tired, like she'd said it to herself all week. I know, I said. But I couldn't stop thinking about you. Something flickered across her face, fear, maybe longing. You don't understand what this could do to me. Then explain it, I said quietly. Because right now, all I know is that I miss you. She laughed once, sharp and pained. Miss me? You don't even know me, Daniel. I know enough. She turned away, gripping the edge of the counter. Her shoulders trembled slightly. You think this is some story, don't you? Some lesson in heartbreak you'll outgrow? No, I said, stepping closer. I think it's real. And that's what scares you. Her silence was answer enough. The rain started again, always the rain, soft against the windows. She finally turned to face me, her expression stripped of defenses. You're just a boy, she said, voice trembling. Then why do you look at me like that? I asked. She froze. For a long moment, neither of us moved. The sound of the rain filled everything between us, heavy, constant, unrelenting. I don't, she said finally. But her hand betrayed her, tightening around the edge of the counter until her knuckles went white. I took another step. We were close enough now that I could see the way her breath stuttered. Elena, she looked up at me, and this time, she didn't hide. There was fear in her eyes, yes, but also heat. Hunger. Regret. This isn't fair, she whispered. You have your whole life ahead of you. Maybe I don't want my life without you in it. Her breath caught, just once. Her eyes glistened, and I swear the air shifted, like the world was waiting for one of us to move first. Her hand brushed mine, and for a split second, it was all there, everything we'd been trying not to say. The pull, the ache, the truth. Then she pulled back sharply, almost breaking the moment in half. Stop. I didn't. Tell me you don't feel it, I said. Her voice broke. Don't make me. I stepped closer anyway, until there was nothing left to hide behind. The distance, the fear, all of it collapsed into that one impossible second. Her eyes met mine, wide, trembling, and then, a car pulled into the driveway. Headlights flashed through the window. Elena's breath hitched. It's him, she whispered. Her husband. And the world stopped moving, the sound of car doors slamming cut through the night. Elena's face drained of color. You have to go, she whispered. Now. But I didn't move. You said he lives in Chicago, he wasn't supposed to be here, she interrupted, her voice breaking. Please, Daniel. Her panic jolted me into motion. I grabbed my jacket, but before I could reach the back door, the front one opened. Lena. His voice carried through the house, calm, uncertain, too familiar. She stepped into the hallway, forcing her tone steady. Mark. What are you doing here? I left some papers in the office, he said, brushing rain from his jacket. His eyes scanned the room. Thought I saw another car outside. My heart pounded in my throat. I was half hidden in the kitchen doorway, but his gaze lingered on the mug I'd left on the table. You have company. Elena's silence lasted a beat too long. A student, she said finally. He just left. He nodded slowly, though his expression said he didn't believe her. Strange time for lessons. Deadlines don't wait, she replied, trying for a smile. It almost held. I could see his reflection in the window, the way his eyes narrowed slightly, the tension in his jaw. He didn't argue, but he didn't leave either. I waited until he turned toward the living room before slipping out the back door, the rain drenching me instantly. That night, guilt hit harder than the cold. I'd crossed a line, not just with her, but into something I couldn't control anymore. I didn't text. Didn't call. But 2 days later, I found a message waiting in my inbox. No subject line, no greeting. Just 6 words, you shouldn't have stayed that night. I stared at the screen for a long time before replying. I don't regret it. No response. Until the next morning. You need to stop coming here. Then another. He knows. My blood ran cold. I called her, she didn't pick up. I drove to her house that evening, heart pounding, headlights cutting through mist and rain. Her car was there, but the lights inside were off. When she finally opened the door, her eyes were red, and her voice was raw. He saw your name on the tutoring forms. He thinks, he knows something happened. Did you tell him the truth? She let out a bitter laugh. What truth? That I almost kissed my student. That I turned off the light because I couldn't stand pretending anymore. She stepped back, shaking her head. He's threatening to go to the college board. You could lose your placement, your scholarship, everything. The world tilted a little. You're protecting me. I'm ending this, she said. Before it ruins you. Her eyes glistened in the dark, reflecting the small pool of light from the porch. You'll forget me, Daniel. You have to. But I could see the lie trembling on her lips. The one she didn't dare speak, that she couldn't forget me either. I took a step toward her, voice low. You're wrong. She swallowed hard, holding the door between us like a shield. Then prove it, by walking away. And before I could answer, the door closed, leaving me outside, rain falling harder, everything between us breaking open in silence. That it had been 3 weeks since I'd seen her. The college term ended, my friends talked about plans for the summer, and I pretended to listen. But every time the wind shifted or it rained at night, I thought of her, that house, that lamp, that voice saying, "Pay attention to me." I told myself to move on. I even tried. But some people stay in your head like unfinished sentences. When her name lit up on my phone, I almost didn't believe it. "Can you come by? Just once. Please." The drive felt both too long and too short. By the time I reached her place, the sun had already dipped below the trees. The light inside was dim, the same amber glow as before. She opened the door slowly, eyes tired, but softer somehow. "You came. You asked." Neither of us smiled. We just stood there, staring, both unsure who was supposed to speak first. Finally, she turned and walked toward the living room. The books were still stacked on the table, my old notes scattered like nothing had changed. But something had. The air felt heavy, like the moment before a confession or a storm. "He left," she said quietly. "For good this time. Signed everything. The house is mine." I nodded, unsure what to say. "I thought it would feel like freedom," she went on. "But it just feels quiet." I moved closer. "Maybe quiet isn't bad." Her laugh was small, brittle. "You think that because you're young. You still believe silence means peace. For me, it just means I can hear myself think again, and I don't like what I hear." "What do you hear?" She looked up, meeting my eyes. "Regret." That word hung between us. Then she stepped closer, enough that I could see the shimmer in her eyes. "I told myself what we had was a mistake," she said. "But it wasn't. It was the first thing that felt alive in years. And that scared me." I swallowed hard. It scared me too. Her hand lifted, not steady, but deliberate, and brushed the side of my face. "You should hate me for this." "I can't." Her breath hitched. "Then you'll ruin yourself for me." "I already did," I said quietly. Her lips parted, but no sound came. For a long moment, neither of us moved. The distance between us felt smaller than air. Then she whispered, "Daniel, if we do this, there's no pretending after." I stopped pretending weeks ago. A tear slipped down her cheek. She didn't wipe it away. The silence stretched, pulsing, alive, and then, slowly, she leaned in. Her forehead touched mine, soft, trembling, real. No words. No excuses. Just breath and warmth and the weight of everything we'd been holding back. "I don't know where this goes," she whispered. "Me neither," I said. "But I'm not walking away this time." For once, she didn't stop me. Outside, the rain began again, gentle and forgiving, tapping against the windows like it had been waiting for this moment too. And as she closed her eyes against mine, the world went still, not perfect, not certain, but honest. That it's strange how ordinary everything looked the next morning. Sunlight spilled through her kitchen window, cutting across the table where my notes still lay open. The rain had stopped, the world was quiet again, but something between us had shifted for good. Elena moved quietly around the room, barefoot, her hair loose and messy in a way I'd never seen before. She looked different like that, not the careful, composed tutor, but the woman underneath all that restraint. She caught me watching her and smiled, soft and tired. "You should be in class." "I dropped it," I said. Her eyebrows rose slightly. "You what?" I shrugged. "Didn't feel right going back. Not after everything." She leaned against the counter, folding her arms. You can't make your whole world smaller for me. I'm not, I said. I'm just, changing it. She exhaled slowly, looking down at the floor. You don't know what that means yet. Maybe not, I admitted. But I know what I want. When she looked back at me, her eyes softened, the kind of look that carried both warmth and warning. Daniel, we're not supposed to work, you and I. Then let's not work, I said quietly. Let's just be. She laughed, a small, broken sound that somehow healed something in both of us. We spent that morning not talking about the future, not labeling what we were. Just two people sharing the same stillness, the same sunlight. Every few minutes, she'd reach out, brush her hand over mine, touch my sleeve, small reminders that this was real, even if fragile. Later, we sat on the back porch, coffee cups in hand. The trees still dripped from the night's rain, and the world smelled like new beginnings. I used to think love was supposed to fix things, she said, her voice thoughtful. Now I think maybe it's just supposed to remind you that you're still alive. I looked at her, the quiet strength, the tired grace, the way her smile never fully reached her eyes but always tried. Then I'm glad I met you, I said. You reminded me. She reached over, her fingers curling around mine. You reminded me too. There was no dramatic goodbye, no sudden declaration. Just silence. A peaceful one this time. When I finally stood to leave, she followed me to the door. I don't know what happens next, I said. Neither do I, she replied. But maybe that's the point. I nodded, the weight in my chest both heavy and light all at once. Will I see you again? She smiled faintly, eyes warm but uncertain. You already do. And somehow, that was enough. As I walked down the path toward my car, the sun caught in the wet leaves, scattering light across the driveway. The world felt open again, not finished, but honest. I looked back once, and she was still standing there in the doorway, watching quietly, the same way she always had, the woman who taught me more than any book ever could. Speech balloon. Did you enjoy the story? Would you like more stories like this, slow burn, emotional, and grounded in realism? What kind of story should I write next?